You ever walk into a room and just know everyone's already decided you don't belong? That was Lincoln Prep for me. First day, and the air smelled like expensive coffee and entitlement. The walls were lined with portraits of past valedictorians, all polished smiles, all looking like they'd never missed a meal or a mortgage payment. And then there was me, Marcus Johnson, in my second-hand blazer and Walmart shoes, gripping my mom's old nursing textbooks like a shield. The whispers started before I even sat down. "Who's that?" A girl fake-coughed scholarship case into her hand. But the real kicker? Dr. Evelyn Graves, calculus teacher, Ivy League pedigree, and, according to the trophy case, Educator of the Year 3 times running. She took one look at my paperwork, then at my face, and sighed like I was a stain on her Persian rug. "We don't coddle students here, Mr. Johnson. If you can't keep up, you'll be gone by midterms." Behind me, Bradley Whitaker, legacy kid, varsity jacket, the whole package, snorted, "Relax, Dr. G, he won't last a month." His buddy added, "Probably got in 'cause they needed a diversity mascot." I clenched my jaw so hard my molars ached. See, back home in Little Village, I was the guy teachers begged to enter math fairs. The one who fixed the bodega owner's cash register at 12 years old just because I could. But here, I might as well have been invisible. I slid into my seat and pulled out my notebook, the one with the frayed edges and my abuela's "Ándale, mijo" scribbled inside the cover. The pages were packed with proofs I'd done for fun. Fermat's last theorem, Navier-Stokes, even a sketch of a solution for the Riemann hypothesis. Stuff these people wouldn't believe came from a kid who shared a bedroom with his abuelo snoring. Graves started the lesson with a smirk. "Today's problem is unsolvable at your level, but since Lincoln Prep breeds excellence..." She scrawled a monstrous equation on the board. Bradley groaned. "That's PhD level." The class erupted in panic. Graves's eyes flicked to me, waiting for me to crumble. But I just saw it. The solution unfolded in my head like a map. My pencil twitched, but I forced it still. Not yet. Let them think I'm lost. Let them think I'm scared. Then Graves dropped the bomb. First correct answer gets an automatic A for the semester. Bradley lunged for his calculator. A girl near me whispered, "Maybe you should try, Marcus." Her smile was sweet, but her eyes said, "I dare you to embarrass yourself." I glanced at my notebook, at the Goldbach conjecture proof I'd scribbled last night between my mom's night shift calls. Let them laugh now, because what none of them knew. I wasn't here to play their game. I was here to break it. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of the homework. Please, I finished Graves's impossible problem in 5 minutes flat while Bradley was still Googling the formula, but because of the noise. The sound of my mom's keys jingling at 3 a.m. when she got home from her double shift at the hospital. The way she tried to tiptoe past my room but stopped when she saw my light on. She pushed the door open, still in her scrubs, smelling like antiseptic and exhaustion. "Mijo, you should be asleep." I closed my notebook fast, but not fast enough. She saw it, the pages filled with equations, the proof I'd scribbled for fun. She didn't say "wow" or "this is incredible." She just sighed and put a hand on my shoulder. "They don't see it yet, do they?" I shook my head. She squeezed my shoulder. "Then make them." The next morning, Graves was waiting for me. "Mr. Johnson." She held up my homework, the one I'd turned in with the solution to her unsolvable problem. "Care to explain?" I kept my voice steady. "It's the answer." She smirked. "It's the correct answer, which is unusual for a transfer student." The way she said transfer made it sound like fraud. "Where'd you copy it from?" I could have told her right then. Could have pulled out my notebook and showed her the other proofs, the ones that would make her jaw drop. But my mom's words echoed in my head. Make them see. So I just shrugged. I didn't copy it. Graves's smile didn't reach her eyes. We'll see about that. The library became my second home. While Bradley and his crew were at some VIP fundraiser, I was in the back corner drowning in advanced calc books. The librarian, Miss Ruiz, a Puerto Rican woman with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue, watched me for a week before sliding a worn copy of Princeton's Unsolved Problems in Mathematics across the table. "You look like you could use a real challenge," she said. I cracked it open. The first page had a handwritten note, "For the kid who solves the unsolvable, E.R." I almost laughed. If only she knew. Then came the first test. Graves handed them back face down, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "Some of you, well, let's just say Lincoln might not be the right fit." Bradley flipped his over and groaned. "B minus? What?" Graves ignored him. She stopped at my desk, her nails tapping the paper like a judge's gavel. "Mr. Johnson." I flipped it. 100%. The class went dead silent. Graves's smile was ice. "A perfect score. How unexpected." Bradley whipped around. "No way. No way he aced that." I didn't say a word, just tucked the test into my notebook, right next to the Goldbach proof. Make them see. And they were starting to. Graves made the announcement right after class, her voice slick with fake excitement. "Lincoln Prep will host the Midwest Math Olympiad next month. Winning team gets automatic consideration for MIT's summer program." The room erupted. Bradley high-fived his cronies like he'd already won. Then Graves dropped the bomb. "Teams of 3, pre-approved by me." Her eyes locked onto mine as she said it. I knew what that meant. Bradley swaggered over after the bell. "Don't bother signing up, scholarship case. My team's got this." His boys laughed, one mimed wiping tears. "Maybe you can clean the whiteboards for us after." I shoved past them. Miss Ruiz caught me in the hallway. "You're not on the list, are you?" I shook my head. She sighed, then leaned in. "There's another way. Independent entries need a faculty sponsor." She glanced at Graves's office. "But good luck with that." I waited outside Graves's door for an hour. When she finally came out, she didn't even stop walking. "No, you haven't heard." I said, "No, Mr. Johnson." She spun on her heel. "This isn't some community college remedial class. The Olympiad is for serious students." My hands curled into fists. I scored higher than anyone in. One test doesn't erase years of proper training. Her smile was venomous. "But since you're so determined, solve this by tomorrow, and I'll reconsider." She slapped a paper on my chest. The problem was insane. Triple integrals, non-linear PDEs, stuff even grad students struggled with. Bradley peeked over her shoulder and whistled. "Damn, that's cold." Graves walked away without another word. I worked all night. The numbers blurred. My coffee went cold. At 4 a.m., my mom found me asleep on my notebook, pencil still in hand. She didn't wake me, just covered me with her nurse's jacket and whispered, "Hazlos tragar esas palabras, mijo." Make them eat those words. Graves was waiting when I walked in next morning. Bradley, too, smirking like a shark. "Well?" She held out her hand. "Let's see this solution." I dropped the paper on her desk. She scanned it, frowned, scanned it again. Then, finally, she looked at me, really looked. "This is correct." Bradley's jaw dropped. I didn't smile, just said what we both knew. "So I'm in?" Graves's eye twitched. "We'll see." The auditorium buzzed with nervous energy, the air thick with the scent of dry erase markers and sweat. Teams from 12 elite schools hunched over their tables, scratching out last-minute calculations. From the podium, Graves surveyed the room like a general inspecting troops, her gaze lingering a beat too long on Bradley's team, then flicking past mine like we were furniture. Miss Ruiz squeezed my shoulder as she set down the final problem. "Recuerda, Los números no mienten. Numbers don't lie. The other teams groaned at the sheet, a monstrous triple integral with nested boundary conditions. Bradley's pencil snapped in half. What the hell is this? We never covered. Graves cut him off. 20 minutes remaining. My teammate Javier, a quiet kid from the Bronx who'd been relegated to alternate status until Graves had no choice but to put him on my squad, whispered, "We're toast." I stared at the equation and laughed. The shift, because here's the thing about math. When you've spent years talking to numbers like they're old friends, they whisper back. This problem? It was just an uglier version of the Goldbach variation I'd solved at 3 a.m. last month. I grabbed a fresh marker and attacked the whiteboard, my handwriting jagged with adrenaline. Behind me, Bradley hissed to Graves. "He's bluffing. No way he—" "5 minutes," Graves announced, but her voice wavered. I stepped back. The room fell silent. Even Javier stopped breathing. There it was, a solution so elegant it made the original problem look clumsy. I'd bypassed Graves's trap entirely, rewritten the rules. The fallout. The Stanford judge, a silver-haired professor with a Nobel Prize pin on his lapel, stared at my board like he'd seen a ghost. This approach wasn't in the rubric. Graves rushed forward. "Then it's invalid." "It's brilliant," the judge said. Bradley's face purpled. "He cheated. Check his—" "Enough!" The judge didn't raise his voice, just pointed at my final line. "This proof simplifies to the exact answer we derived." But Marcus reached it in half the steps. He turned to Graves, icy. "You should be thrilled to have such a mind here." The crowd erupted. Javier whooped. Even the rival teams clapped. "Graves?" She looked at me like I'd pulled a gun. The twist. As the judges tallied scores, Miss Ruiz slipped me a note. "Check your email." MIT's summer program director had been in the audience. Subject line: "Urgent scholarship offer." I glanced up, just in time to see Graves sprinting toward the parking lot, heels clacking like gunshots. Bradley chased after her, screaming about fairness. Javier grinned. "Damn, Johnson, you broke the system." I folded the email into my notebook, right next to Abuela's "Andal, mijo." Make them see. And now? They couldn't look away. The school parking lot was swarming with cameras when I arrived Monday morning. Some reporter from the Tribune had dug up my anonymous math forum posts, the ones where I'd published partial proofs under the username e.graves214. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Headline: Southside teen solves century-old math mystery, while his teacher tried to fail him. Bradley's father was on the steps screaming at the principal. "You let some hood rat embarrass my son on national." Then he saw me. The cameras swung like hungry wolves. Turns out Miss Ruiz had accidentally left my notebook open in the faculty lounge last Friday. Graves found it, saw the Goldbach proof, and in her rage she'd snapped photos to prove I was plagiarizing, only for the department chair to run them straight to a colleague at UChicago. By midnight, the American Mathematical Society had verified it. My proof, my name. Graves's career? Gone. The principal called me into his office, palms sweating on his Lincoln Prep mug. "Marcus, we want to celebrate you. A feature in the alumni magazine, maybe I want Graves gone." He choked. "Now, son, let's not be hasty. Not fired." I leaned forward. "I want her teaching remedial math at my old middle school. No AP classes, no Olympiad teams, just kids who hate numbers." The silence could have powered the city. Graves cornered me by the lockers later. Her blazer was wrinkled, her voice raw. "You set me up." I shook my head. "You did that yourself when you assumed I couldn't count past 10. Her breath hitched. For the first time, I saw it. Shame. I had to be twice as good to get half the respect in this field. And you just Walked in and showed you up? I finished. Yeah, now you know how it feels. She flinched like I'd slapped her. MIT's offer came with a full ride. Stanford threw in research funding, but it was the email from a little village 8th grader that made my throat tight. Senor Ruiz says you proved Goldbach. Does that mean I can do hard math too? I hit reply before I even sat down. Claro que sí. Here's how I started. The letter from the White House arrived on the same day as my abuela's tamal. MIT acceptance, presidential commendation, and pork steamed in corn husks, all stacked on our kitchen table like some surreal altar of achievement. Mommy pressed her shaking fingers to her mouth when she saw the embossed seal. Dios mío, she whispered, like she was afraid the words might burn her. I should have been celebrating. Instead, I was watching Graves through the school's library window as she loaded cardboard boxes into her Hyundai. The great Dr. Evelyn Graves, reduced to cleaning out her office before sundown. She moved like someone had cut her strings. Javier nudged me. You gonna gloat? I shook my head, just remembering how she looked at me that first day, like I was gum on her designer shoe. She didn't see me approach, just startled when my shadow crossed her box of tenure papers. You should have taken the MIT spot, she said without turning around. They'll eat you alive here. I placed a single sheet on top of her files. The Riemann hypothesis, my new pet project. You forgot this. Her hands froze on the box flaps. For 3 heartbeats, she just stared at those elegant, impossible symbols. When she finally looked up, her eyes were red-rimmed. Why? Because you were right about one thing, I said. Math doesn't care about skin color, just the quality of your mind. I tapped the paper. And yours is too good to waste. The crumpled Starbucks napkin she pressed into my hand had her new email, chicagopublicschools.gov. No signature, just coordinates, 41.8781 degrees N, 87.6298 degrees W, the location of my old middle school. Mommy cried when I told her I'd deferred MIT. Mijo, esta es tu oportunidad. Ya tengo otra, I interrupted, showing her the grant paperwork. The Marcus Johnson STEM Foundation would launch next month, its headquarters 2 blocks from our apartment. The board? Me, Miss Ruiz, and one disgraced PhD who knew exactly how the game was rigged. Bradley's dad sued, of course. Lost, of course. The judge quoted my Goldbach proof in her dismissal. Graduation day smelled like fresh-cut grass and diesel fumes from the buses idling on Cicero. I adjusted my valedictorian sash, hand-sewn by Abuela, and stepped to the mic. 500 faces stared back. The Javiers, the quiet girls from Chem Lab, the freshmen who'd started leaving unsolvable problems in my locker. People keep asking if I'm proud, I began. But pride isn't the point. In the very last row, partially hidden by the oak trees, a woman in CPS-issued khakis stood perfectly still. The point, I said, holding up my tattered notebook, is what happens when we stop assuming who can't. Graves didn't clap, but she didn't walk away either. The Marcus Johnson STEM Foundation opened in a converted laundromat on 26th Street, its windows still streaked with the ghost of lavanderia in faded blue letters. We painted over it with fractal patterns, Javier's idea, equations bleeding into murals of the Mexican Revolution heroes my abuela worshipped. The ribbon-cutting scissors trembled in my hand as the neighborhood kids pressed their noses against the glass. Graves arrived 15 minutes late, her CPS lanyard swinging as she hauled a crate of donated textbooks. "Don't get emotional," she muttered when she saw my face. "I'm just here for the tax deduction." Miss Ruiz cackled and handed her a mop. The foundation's inaugural class contained 12 kids. Rosa, who'd been written up for daydreaming instead of doing times tables, she was doing calculus in her head. Jamal, whose IEP said math disability, he could disassemble a PlayStation in 90 seconds flat. Every problem case. Graves had flagged from her new middle school roster. Bradley's father sent a cease and desist letter when he heard we were using Lincoln Prep's discarded lab equipment. His signature looked like it had been carved into the paper with a steak knife. Graves taped it to our wall of shame next to the emergency exit. We taught math through survival skills, probability via dice games in the alley, geometry through graffiti murals, calculus by calculating how fast the 26th Street bus needed to go to outrun police sirens. When the Chicago Tribune called it radical pedagogy, Graves gave her first smile in months. "Good," she told the reporter. "Radical means working." The article quoted her as Dr. Evelyn Johnson by mistake. She didn't correct them. Rosa solved the Foundation's first millennium problem during snack time. Not the whole thing, just a lemma that had stumped PhDs for years. She announced it with juice box in hand, kicking her feet under the table. It was easy, she shrugged when Graves nearly choked on her coffee. I recognized that tone. I'd used it myself in Graves's class. The NSF grant offer arrived 48 hours later. Bradley showed up unannounced in November, his varsity jacket swapped for a Stanford hoodie. He stood in the doorway for 10 full minutes, watching Jamal explain tensor calculus to a 7th grader using skateboard tricks. "You gonna gloat?" I asked, echoing Javier's question from months before. He shook his head. "Just tell me how to help." Graves handed him a broom. "Start with the floors." 5 years later, the Foundation had taken over the entire block. What started as a converted laundromat now sprawled across 3 buildings, its walls vibrating with the energy of 97 kids who used to be called unteachable. The original fractal murals had multiplied, equations bleeding into portraits of neighborhood legends. My abuela's face woven into the golden ratio, Miss Ruiz's laugh lines forming Fibonacci spirals. I stood on the rooftop garden watching Graves drill Rosa's team for the International Math Olympiad. At 22, Rosa had already published 2 papers that made academics weep. Now she was coaching a 12-year-old from Little Village while simultaneously texting corrections to a Princeton postdoc. "Johnson!" Graves barked up at me. "Your protege is showing off again." Rosa stuck out her tongue and rearranged her butterfly clips, the same ones she'd worn at 12 when she first walked into the Foundation, all knees and attitude. Some things never change. The phone rang at 3:17 a.m., MIT's Dean of Mathematics, voice tight with urgency. "Marcus, we need you to verify this proof. The Clay Institute is ready to award." I squinted at the email attachment. Rosa's signature smirk stared back from the header. "Solution to the Navier-Stokes existence and smoothness problem. No big deal." I burst out laughing so hard I woke Bradley, who was crashed on our couch after pulling an all-nighter tutoring our newest cohort. "¿Qué pasa?" he mumbled, his Spanish now near fluent. I turned the screen toward him. "She did it." Bradley blinked. "Holy shit. Graves is gonna cry." They came from everywhere that spring. Journalists who'd once called our neighborhood hopeless politicians, suddenly eager for photo ops, former Lincoln Prep teachers shuffling in the back, avoiding Graves's gaze. But the ones that mattered were in the front row. Mommy, hands clasped like she was still praying over my first scholarship letter, abuela, clutching Rosa's cheek like she used to pinch mine, Miss Ruiz, alive with the smug satisfaction of someone who'd known the truth all along, and Graves, standing stiff-backed in her CPS polo, arms crossed, until Rosa grabbed her hand and dragged her to the podium. Rosa adjusted the mic downward, she was still 5 feet nothing, and cleared her throat. "So she began, "everyone's talking about how I beat the odds." She made air quotes. "But that's stupid. The only odds were you all," she pointed at the politicians, "betting against us." The Foundation kids roared. Rosa pulled something from her pocket, the original juice-stained napkin where she'd scribbled her first proof. Real math doesn't care about zip codes, just whether you're brave enough to write the next line. Then she did what I never had. She threw her head back and howled with victory. Later, as the crowd dispersed, Graves lingered by our original whiteboard, the one still bearing my first Goldbach proof. She traced the numbers with one finger. "You knew," she said quietly. "Even when Yeah." I handed her a fresh marker. "But they didn't." Across the room, Jamal was teaching Bradley's toddler sister how to count using Skittles. Rosa had a cluster of middle schoolers in a headlock demanding they show their work properly. Cabrones. Graves uncapped the marker and finally, began writing her own next chapter. 10 years in, the foundation didn't just occupy the block. It had become the block. The bodega next door started stocking advanced calculus textbooks between the plantains and Gatorade. The alley where we'd once taught probability with dice was now a mosaic of tessellated murals, each tile placed by a different kid who'd gone on to college. Even the stray cats knew to curl up in the Fibonacci spiral-shaped nooks Javier had built into the benches. I found Graves at 5 a.m. on the rooftop, her CPS lanyard replaced with a lanyard that simply read "Proofreader" in Sharpie. She was hunched over a notebook covered in a 12-year-old scrawl, another unsolvable problem from the neighborhood. "Kids got talent," she muttered, not looking up. "But their notation is criminal." I sipped my coffee. "So fix it," she glared. "I'm trying, Johnson. Some of us don't magically—" The rooftop door burst open. Rosa, now a postdoc at Caltech, stormed in holding her phone like a live grenade. They did it. On the screen, a shaky video from the International Math Olympiad in Tokyo. A 14-year-old from our foundation, Lupita, who'd started with us unable to multiply fractions, stood frozen as the announcer declared her perfect score. The camera panned to her competitors, legacy kids from Exeter and Stuyvesant, their mouths hanging open. Graves made a sound like a deflating balloon. Rosa grinned. "Told you she'd wreck them." The White House letter came on Dia de los Muertos of all days. Abuela cackled as she set it beside our ofrenda, right next to Mommy's nursing awards and a framed photo of Miss Ruiz, who'd passed last year, mid-lecture, solving a problem on the board. "The President requests the honor of your presence." Bradley, now a foundation board member, nearly tore the envelope. "This is it. National STEM Initiative. Full funding. We could—" I folded the letter back up. "We're not going." The room went silent. Even Graves paused her red pen. Rosa understood first. Because they should come here. Exactly. Air Force One touched down at Midway on a Tuesday. The motorcade got lost twice trying to navigate 26th Street's potholes. The president, a woman who'd grown up 4 blocks from the foundation, stepped out of her limo into a gauntlet of our kids holding whiteboards instead of flags. Each board bore a single equation that, when combined, solved one of the millennium problems. Lupita handed her the final piece. "This," the president said, shaking her head at the elegant proof, "is why I hate mathematicians. You make the impossible look easy." Graves snorted. "Nah, we just teach easy." And for the first time in history, a sitting U.S. president sat cross-legged on a cracked linoleum floor to learn algebra from a 9th grader. That night, as the news helicopters finally left, we found Lupita still on the roof, scribbling under the streetlights. "Problem won't solve itself," she grumbled when we approached. Rosa stole her pencil. "Neither will you, genius." Below us, the foundation hummed. Kids debating over midnight tamales, Bradley leading a rap battle about quadratic formulas, Graves yelling at someone to show your damn work. I leaned back, staring at the stars we usually couldn't see through Chicago's light pollution. But tonight, they burned. 15 years deep, The foundation had become its own zip code. City planners just started calling the neighborhood La Matematica on official maps. The 26th Street bus line got rerouted because too many kids were doing calculus at the stop. And Graves, she'd stopped dyeing her hair, letting the silver streak through like a living proof of time's passage. I found her where I always did, in the original laundromat-turned-classroom, now preserved like a museum exhibit. She was staring at the first whiteboard we'd ever used, still bearing the ghost of my Goldbach proof from a lifetime ago. "You know," she said without turning, "I spent 30 years teaching math." Her finger traced a faded smudge. "Turns out I didn't know the first damn thing about numbers until I came here." Outside, the sounds of the next generation carried through the open windows. Lupita's protege, an 8-year-old named Matteo, arguing fluid dynamics with a visiting Nobel laureate Rosa's toddler daughter chewing on a protractor while babbling about pretty shapes Bradley's hip-hop algebra class bumping through the walls. I equals mx plus b, graph that line, just watch me. I handed Graves a fresh marker. "Then keep learning." The notebook arrived in a plain manila envelope with no return address. Inside, on yellowing legal paper, was a single handwritten problem. "Prove that love is the only infinite set." No signature, just a coffee ring in the shape of Chicago. Graves took one look and cursed. "Goddamn Ruiz." We framed it next to the original juice-stained napkin. They came like pilgrims. The president, now out of office, teaching a weekly civics class that always devolved into math debates, MIT admissions, begging on hands and knees for our rejects, former Lincoln Prep kids bringing their own children to enroll. Even Bradley's father showed up once, lingering at the edge of the courtyard until Matteo dragged him inside to help build a fractal model out of tamal husks. He left with corn silk in his Rolex and something suspiciously like tears in his eyes. On the foundation's 20th anniversary, we tore down the old laundromat sign. Not to erase it, but to build it into the new archway, equations swirling around the faded lavenderia like planets orbiting a sun. Rosa, now tenured at Princeton, flew in with her whole department. "Should we say something profound?" she asked as we stood before the crowd. Graves shoved us aside and grabbed the mic. "No, do math." And just like that, 4 generations of students, from Abuela's oldest friends to Mateo's kindergarten class, covered every surface with proofs. The walls, the sidewalks, each other's arms. Chicago sent a cleanup crew the next day. We sent them back with their van plastered in prime numbers. That night, I found Lupita, now a foundation co-director, on the roof with Graves's old red pen. She was correcting a paper by a Harvard professor. "Too slow," she muttered, scribbling. "Obviously you just—" I dropped a fresh notebook beside her. "New student tomorrow, 7 years old, refugee kid from Honduras, doesn't speak English." Lupita didn't look up. "Habla matemáticas?" "Fluently." She grinned and reached for another red pen. Below us, the foundation hummed on, an equation that would never balance, and shouldn't. This story reminds us that true worth is never determined by the prejudices or limitations others place upon us. It is measured by the quiet courage to keep proving yourself, even when no one is watching. Marcus's journey teaches us that injustice and doubt can only define you if you let them. Real strength lies in transforming every "you don't belong" into fuel for your purpose. The world may judge quickly, but truth, like mathematics, is unshakable. It doesn't matter if you solve your equation in a mansion or a laundromat. What matters is that you keep writing it, line by line, until the world has to see. Graves's redemption arc reveals a deeper truth. Even those who uphold unfair systems can change when confronted with undeniable brilliance, not through anger, but through the relentless pursuit of excellence. The Foundation's legacy shows that real justice isn't about tearing others down. It's about building ladders for those coming after you. Whether it's racism, classism, or any other barrier, the antidote is always the same. Outwork the doubt, outlast the bias, and outshine the shadows. Now, we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever faced a moment where you had to prove your worth against the odds? How did it shape you? Drop a comment below. Your story might inspire someone else to keep going. If this resonated with you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more thought-provoking content. Here's to lighting up the dark corners of the world, one quiet victory at a time. May your journey, no matter how tough, always lead you home to your truest self.